Welcome to the Mandatory Social Interaction Show. I'm your host, Eric, along with the marsupial-loving Tim.
Hello.
How are you doing, Tim?
Marsupial-loving. I mean, I do like kangaroos, so...
See? I knew it. That's how...
It's always an interesting way to start the stream. Starting the show off with some random adjective.
That's because my random adjective generator is usually broken in front of the right before the show. So I'm always like, the first thing that comes to mind is like, rodent loving. Okay, we're going with that. And it's like, it's always some bizarre thing because I can never think of like any sort of, antediluvian. I can't, that doesn't come to mind until right now. Where it's
gotcha.
like, oh, the antediluvian, Tim, that would be amazing.
The affluent.
Yeah, affluent. Yeah, right. The really like, flowery ones don't ever come to mind right before the stream for me. It's always something stupid.
I'm all right with it. It's fine. But I'm doing well, Eric. How are you, man?
I'm doing good. So we have a few things to talk about today. I know we have a couple people in the chat, so that's super cool. We have no Ben
this week.
We have no Ben this week. He is on assignment up on the North Shore of Minnesota. He's taking a little time off, and that is awesome for him.
Not okay.
He posted a beautiful picture in our private chat of where he's at, and it's gorgeous. So I'm immediately jealous, and he's just a jerk for not being here.
Absolutely, I agree, 100%.
And let's see. So we do have a couple things to talk about. The first thing I wanted to talk about today, and this could go a little long as a topic, but I'm interested in it, and I'm going to preface this by saying that Tim, you are like the only person I know, or one of very few, who really enjoy Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace.
Absolutely, yeah. And I'm not ashamed of it. A lot of people say I should be, but I'm not.
Honestly, I don't think you need to be ashamed. People like what they like, and that's fine. I mean, some people have taste, and some people don't. No, I'm completely kidding. No, in all seriousness, that is a movie that most people, or a lot of people, I don't even want to say most, but a lot of people really don't like, and really think it's not very good. I will be honest. When I first saw the movie, I did enjoy it. I was a little confused by it because it wasn't quite what I expected. And then the more I thought about it and the more I kind of looked at it, the less I kind of liked it, to the point now where I won't watch it. It's not that I don't consider it a Star Wars movie, but it's not a thing that I'm gonna like. I don't like go, oh, I really want to watch Phantom Menace. Now the other two, the prequels, I do like 2 and 3. 2 is probably my favorite one of the 3 prequels. I like Attack of the Clones. I think Attack of the Clones is pretty cool. Mostly because
some pretty cool scenes in it.
Yeah, the action scenes in Attack of the Clones are really good, and it doesn't get other than this. Okay, so the only crummy part of Attack of the Clones is the whole romance angle with Anakin is kind of bad, but like it's made up for.
It's pretty rough, yeah.
In the second half of the movie, though, really makes up for it as soon as they start getting to, is it Geonosis?
Yes.
All of that
during the Geonosis arena and when the clones come in on the LAATs and all that stuff.
All of that stuff is fantastic, and I really liked that. That was one of the things. That's probably my favorite one, mostly for that stuff. I think the action is really well done, and I did like, and I wanted more of the angle where Obi-Wan is doing his little kind of detective bit. Where, and I felt like it was mishandled, but I felt like the detective bit in that was super cool, where he's like, I have an arrowhead, and now I have to figure out what this, and he takes it to like the greasy diner owner, and he's like, "Oh, that's one of these," and that
Jetster, yeah.
That whole angle was cool. I liked that. I really wanted more of that. I was like, and I will admit that when that happened at first, I was like, "Oh shit, this could be really cool. This could be like a Star Wars detective story. This could be like a whole new way to go." And it didn't really go that way, unfortunately.
No, yeah, I agree. It's unfortunate,
but overall, two is my favorite one. 3 gets really bogged down in some of the Anakin stuff, and it's good. Nothing wrong with 3, but 2 is the one I like. But I don't want to talk about 2, even though we've talked about 2 now for like 5 minutes. I wanted to talk about liking something that no one else likes.
Right. Which it's an interesting topic because it is one of those things where it's easy to get labeled as a hipster or somebody who's just trying too hard to be different just because you like something that not everybody else likes. And it's definitely fascinating to me because I kind of live on the opposite end of the spectrum where like it seems like everybody's losing their minds over Fortnite and PUBG and Battle Royale games, and I hate them. I can't stand them. I'm on the opposite end of the spectrum that I don't like them, and it's very interesting to me that to see that in myself because being a Star Wars fan, Star Wars in general has always been a super duper popular thing, regardless of trilogy or era or whatever, and so it's just very interesting to look at it from that perspective. And I'd like to make a note here that Ben's not here, so we're talking a lot about Star Wars, which is awesome. But that said, it's an interesting thing because I've been told many times that I just like things because they're not liked by other people. It's kind of like that underdog thing, but in reality, it's just what I like. People just like what they like, and it's such a hard thing to put your finger on why that is. But like out of all Star Wars fans, I would say people who genuinely love the Phantom Menace are a very small percentage, and I would say that I would say the same for episode 2 and 3. Actually, I would say the prequel trilogies usually are at the very bottom of everybody's lists for the most part, and being fans of any part of the prequel trilogy is usually almost a reason to be shunned from the Star Wars fandom, and it's kind of a way of gatekeeping, I think. It's a bit unfortunate in that regard, but I digress.
and that's so I have some experience with this in a couple of ways. Talking about Star Wars, obviously, I'm in the minority in that I don't think at least episodes 2 and 3 are like the worst Star Wars movies ever. I think they're actually pretty good. I like them. I mean, I don't think they're the best ones either. Right. But overall, I don't hate them vehemently the way some fans do. And
well, from my perspective, I don't think there's been a bad Star Wars movie.
Yeah,
and some people say there have been bad Star Wars movies. So
I mean, I will admit that Phantom Menace is on the bottom of my list, but to say that it's truly bad, I mean, I don't think so. I mean, there are parts of that movie that I do enjoy. I mean, honestly, it's funny when you. I don't know. A couple weeks ago, you were playing the pod racing game on stream, and I was like, "Yeah, the pod racing thing was actually cool." I mean, my problem with pod racing in the movie was that it didn't really advance the story a whole lot.
Right.
But as a spectacle, as a thing that, like, if you took the pod racing section from Phantom Menace and just showed it to somebody, and just said, "Hey, check this out. This is an interesting scene of a movie or interesting sequence." I think overall, as an action sequence, it's really well done. It's really cool and it's fun to watch. And there are more parts of Phantom Menace that I like. Overall, I think it's the weakest of the. What are we up to? 8 now. But that doesn't
10
mean,
if you include the side stories.
Yeah, and that doesn't mean that. That doesn't mean it's bad. It's just not, on my list, it's not the highest one. Unfortunately, something has to be in last place, and that's the one.
Of course. Yeah. But that doesn't mean you hate it or despise it. It just means that you rank it lower.
It's not a thing that I like a lot, but it's not horrible either. And if someone's watching it, I might roll my eyes a little bit, but I'll watch it. It's not, but
Not unpalatable.
but in a non-Star Wars way, I have always been, I've always kind of, pardon the metaphor, but marched to my own drummer with music. I have always been into music that no one else is into, and not on purpose. It's just ended up being the way it was. And it's one of those things that, for me, it's like somebody introduced me to prog rock, like, Rush and Yes and stuff like that. And I went, wow, this is really cool. And I got into it. And it's not that nobody likes prog rock, but, as a genre, and there is a lot of like prog rock backlash where if you say like you're into prog, people are like, oh, geez, you're into that, like, that's like there's like this kind of hipster backlash against prog rock, and there's and you can there's no end of articles about how this song is 20 minutes long and it's this self-indulgent circle jerk, and whatever, and if you don't like it, that's fine. I'm not saying everyone needs to like what I like. That's certainly not the case. But
well. Keep in mind, I'm into ska, so.
And what's funny is you say you're into ska, and there was a period of time when I was in my probably early 20s when ska was like huge.
Yeah.
And what's funny is just because of the age difference between us, ska for you is probably like, oh my God, that's like so old. That's so retro that you're into ska. And for me, it was like ska was like making this huge comeback when I was like just around like college age.
Well, ska was very much a counterculture movement in its own right.
Yeah.
And I mean, because it was kind of a response to the dark and brooding kind of rock that had kind of taken over the scene at the time. And ska was a much more happy-go-lucky way of expressing emotion and feeling than what was enabled by the music at the time.
Yeah.
And this is mid to late 90s for third wave is mainly what I'm talking about. But that's most of my experience from ska. But
that's literally right around my college years.
Yeah, because you had stuff like Sublime and Goldfinger and Real Big Fish that were using it as an outlet for music in maybe not such a plucky way, because like Sublime has very serious subject matter and stuff like that. But I don't know. It's one of those deals where it was very much a counter to what was being produced by certain genres like I would say metal at the time, and even industrial and things like that. In some regards, it was kind of that counterbalance.
Oh yeah, totally. And that's it's interesting. So a couple of things I can say. The first thing is being the person who likes what nobody likes. And you know what? And before I get into that, I do want to acknowledge what Elle is saying in the chat, that true fans of any creator are like remain loyal in spite of popular belief or lower quality pieces of work. And she goes on to say that, Tim, even when you suck, she still watches you.
Which is all the time. So,
which is not literally what she said. She was much nicer about it than I was, but I had to paraphrase it to. She
said, "I still watch Tim when he has a bad gaming night," which is frequent.
Which is what I said. That's what I said. No. I'm just trolling Tim a little bit.
Not to assume what she says, but I think what she means with that is, even when there's a game that because we were kind of poking at this before the show started.
Sure.
But even when there's a game that I'm not feeling, that it's quite obvious that I'm not enjoying it, but I'm trying really hard, she still stays and engages and makes it an exciting and interesting time. So
oh yeah, absolutely.
I think that is that's appreciated. Thank you all.
And that is 100%. And you know what's funny is I'm the same way, and I don't disagree with really anything that she's saying. It's funny. It's funny how many fans are like fair weather fans.
Mhm.
And you know, and I can give two or three examples. Thank you for the host, Danny Joe. That's amazing. You rock. And I don't have any like interactive things on the screen, but I see it in the chat. And thank you a ton for hosting me. That's fantastic. We really appreciate it. I'm gonna have to get some of that stuff set up. I think you're the first person to host me outside of like Ben. Anyway, getting back to what we were saying, you know, it's funny how fans are really fair weather fans, and as a for instance, a couple of things. First, you know, streamers. To L's point, like I totally will watch you, and I don't care what game you're playing, and I don't care how bad or good of a night you're having. Like I want to be in there. I want to engage. A, the chat is super cool, and B, I want to engage with you. And if you're having a bad night, I'm sympathetic because I know how that goes. You know, everyone has bad nights. You know,
But
and
on the same token, if you look at other streamers who play like Fortnite exclusively, if they decide to switch games, people jump in droves.
exactly,
So
exactly, and that's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
You know, and that's
absolutely.
a thing that I don't understand. Like, you know, I'm another example is I went to a Rush concert. Oh shoot, I don't even remember when that was. I guess it was about 2007, and went to the show. Some friends of mine were there, and we weren't sitting together, but we were like texting. Hi, Danny Joe. And the funny thing was they got to the part of the show where they're doing where Neil Peart does this huge drum solo, and it was fantastic. Of course he knocked it out of the park. He's Neil Peart, right?
Right.
But I'm like, wow, this is great, and I get a text from my friend, and she's with her, I don't know, boyfriend, significant other, whatever, and like the people she was with, or she's like, what did you think of the drum solo? And I'm like, that was fantastic, that was amazing, and she's like, yeah, I thought so too. She's like, did you think it was Rush enough, in quotes? And I'm like, yeah, I mean that's Rush on stage. And you know, she's like, yeah, that was my opinion too, but like everyone I'm with was like, that drum solo just like, it wasn't Rush enough, it wasn't like the, you know. And I'm like, dude,
that you know, that leads into impossible expectations.
exactly.
And people putting very specific requirements on performance of people, and I mean that happens a lot in streaming too. I mean, since I'm not super into the music scene like you are, but ultimately for me there is a lot of expectation that people will put on you to deliver a very specific way, and if you change that formula at all, people tend to feel like that violates their trust in a way. And it's interesting because it's that whole fair weather thing. Like you can't change your formula without alienating a large portion of your fan base, and it's something.
Yeah,
it is definitely something.
And it comes back to some things we've talked about before, like people feeling like they own the, you know, like now they own the thing instead of it being, you know, owned by the creator of the thing and all that
Yes.
stuff. Like fans
And that falls into Star Wars. That falls right into Star Wars.
Yeah.
When George Lucas was making the Star Wars films, the fans said, you know, when he released the special editions, the backlash was unbelievable, and it was just it's his artwork. He's allowed to do what he wants with it. It's his idea. You don't have to agree with it, but you can't say he's not allowed to do that because it's his. He owns the rights. He made
absolutely.
it. So it was completely crazy to me when that happened. And I mean, the same thing happened with the prequel trilogy too.
Now, I will say this: the only problem I had with the special editions, and I was not one of the big backlash people, but the only problem I had with it was when they came out with the special editions, they decided that those were the definitive editions, and then they kind of didn't, like, anything that's not a special edition basically got backburnered, and for a while you couldn't even get like the original theatrical print of any of the original 3 trilogy on, you know, DVD or Blu-ray or anything. And I felt like that was crappy.
And I agree, but you also have to look at it from a marketing perspective. If you're given the choice of the two things, they're going to be causing there's a potential that they could be causing a conflict with their own sales. And so the idea is to make that the definitive, put that out, get everyone to buy that, and then maybe later on re-release the theatricals.
Yeah, I mean,
Make
I don't
double the money.
disagree. You're right. I mean, they're
Because it's Fox. I mean, it was 20th Century Fox at the time, and that's just how they were.
Well, and in all fairness, I mean, they're everyone is in business to make money. I mean, that's
right. And Disney does the same thing too with their vault thing that they do, where they won't sell a movie on Blu-ray for 10 years, and then they'll bring it out of the vault, and then they'll remaster it and then sell it as a the new definitive edition, even though it's not the exact original. It's just it's been digitally cleaned up and looks way better and printed better and all that stuff. So it's I feel like it was more of a marketing ploy, but I agree with you. Like, I didn't like that either, because I personally love the special editions, but I would like to have been able to see the two side by side and have the option, because I would have bought both. I mean, I love Star Wars that much. I've bought the entire of both trilogies like 8 times each, and like every new release I would buy it. So
when I realized I was on that treadmill of buying the same movie over and over and over again, I kind of stopped. I do love Star Wars, but there was a point where I said, okay, I really don't want to buy them 17 more times. I want to have Star Wars once. And so for the most part, I think I have all of them, or a good portion of them, digitally now.
Yeah.
So I think I have them all like on Vudu or something, where it's like I can just if I want to watch Star Wars, I can just watch Star Wars and I'm done. Yeah, Danny Joe, I'm having camera problems again. I'm going to try to sort that out again this weekend and see if there's something I can do that's more permanently fixing it. But yeah, I eventually realized that was kind of a marketing thing, where they're just trying to sell me the same movie over and over and over. And so I do my best to kind of get a definitive edition of it, and then that's mine, and I'm happy with it, and I don't worry about it too much.
Yeah, for me, for Star Wars, I bought the 2 original trilogies, the prequel trilogy and original trilogy, on Blu-ray in that pack that they released.
Yep.
Which I think was shortly before Disney bought Star Wars. And I'm quite pleased with it. It has like everything that they could have crammed into those Blu-rays in terms of special features, behind the scenes, all that stuff. And it's like, I'm fine with that. I'll wait till the next trilogy comes out and buy the Blu-ray set of those, and then I'll be happy. And I realized I was in that same treadmill as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Excuse me.
And so something I wanted to... So I'm curious to hear what you think about what Danny Joe just posted in the chat, which is, that you're kind of painting things into a corner when you put requirements on the artist, like what we were talking about with, Rush's drum solo literally not being Rush enough, or like, this Star Wars movie isn't like the other Star Wars movies, therefore it's not Star Wars.
Right.
And I agree, you're kind of painting, you're kind of like, shoving everything into a very tight space when, and I feel like, and I'm gonna pass this over to you in a second, Tim, but I want to preface it with, I feel like this is one of those things with creators where they are damned if they do and damned if they don't. It's like they can put out the exact same movie as the last one, which is the one everyone adores, and people will complain that it's exactly the same as the previous one. Or they can innovate and make it something different and new, and then everyone complains that it's not the thing because it's different and new.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And
I actually have another example of that. One of my favorite bands is Reliant K. I don't know if you ever heard of them. They are they are still, I guess, loosely a Christian pop punk band that I used to listen to when I was growing up, and I've listened to them forever just because I love their music. I love the way they do things. They started out as an attempt at punk, like they were trying to be like, oh man, who was that? God, it was like a really early punk band. MXPX, I think, is who they were trying to be like.
Oh, sure.
And they were kind of trying to emulate that style. And like this was back in, I want to say, early 2000s, 2001 maybe, something like that. So they've been kind of ever since they've made music at their pace. They've done what they want to do, and they've evolved their sound. And every album is distinctively different from the last. And the way that they have evolved and grown is amazing. But they did something different for an album. It was their album. Oh boy, I'm drawing a blank right now. I'm having trouble with my brain. It was. I'm gonna look it up. Hold on, 5 seconds. It was. Which one was it? Collapsible Lung came out in 2013. So that album was more of like a pop album. Like it was a lot of synthesized sound, a lot of synthesized music. And I mean, there was still their regular, guitar, drum, bass, their usual kind of sound with their mix of like they would mix in like piano and xylophone. They would do all the they would push the music kind of in different directions with different instruments, which was really fascinating and really interesting to see. But interestingly, it was a very pop album, and a lot of people responded negatively to it. And because their previous album had been a much more clear-cut kind of alt rock, pop rock, pop punk, whatever you want to call it, kind of album. So to see people like have that reaction, I even at first was like, nah, this isn't good. But listening to it over and over again, which I do with Relient K albums because I freaking love Relient K, I ended up, it really grew on me and made me kind of I was just kind of like, the way that they have pushed themselves in so many different directions for this album is just mind-bogglingly impressive. And if not given the ability and the room to do that, and if everyone shut them out for that, they'll never, they would never do it again. So it's one of those things that to grow, you have to be given a little bit of room. Like Danny Joe said, you don't want to paint them into a small box. You want to give them a lot of room to grow and do their thing. So it's very easy to let yourself kind of fall into the comfort of, this is the way that I like it. This is the way it should be. Star Wars should be a trilogy of films that follows the same formula every time and has, is focused on a Skywalker through and through, and that's that. And to see it kind of shifted for this latest trilogy is really nice and really interesting and refreshing for the series. And I think it's something that it needed pretty desperately. So it's an interesting thing to see kind of the evolution of these things by personally giving it the room to grow and to kind of make mistakes and try new things. And without that, nothing ever changes. And it's boring when things don't change.
And what's funny is I feel like we are kindred spirits in a way about Star Wars because The Last Jedi is probably my favorite Star Wars movie. And I, having seen them all, I walked out of The Last Jedi going, holy crap, that was so different and such a different direction. And I loved the storyline with Luke, and I loved the interaction between Rey and Kylo Ren, and I realized killing Snoke was like, oh, you have an interesting villain and now you're killing him off. I get that point, but it was such a twist.
Spoiler alert, by the way, guys.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think we're beyond spoilers.
The movie's been out more than
Jedi.
a year at this point.
Yeah,
right?
I think so.
Or it's more than 6 months or whatever.
If I spoiled it for,
and
I will say this: if I spoiled it for someone, I'm really sorry, but it wasn't intentional. But like that twist right in the middle of the movie that immediately cements the like, oh wait, Kylo Ren really is the bad guy. Like, and even the fact that they gave you that doubt, like there was the first half of that movie, you're kind of like, is Kylo actually evil? Is he maybe a little bit good? And then like that twist where you, and even then you're like, oh my God, Kylo could actually be part good, or, and then suddenly, he clearly turns the other way, and it's like, oh wow, this, like, to me, I all of a sudden was like, yeah, you removed an interesting character, but that gave another character so much more depth.
Yes,
like immediately,
absolutely.
and I was like, oh my god, this movie is really, really good, and I enjoyed it on such a deep level. And then I came back from it, and I'm looking on Twitter, and
And
people
the
hate that
fan the
movie.
fan rage was unbelievable to me for that film. And I have some problems with the film, but I thought it was a solid film. I thought it was a solid entry into the series. And excuse me, I have my complaints about it, and I have my problems with it. And I mean, I could talk probably for the next 2 hours about all the issues I had with it. But that said, it's not a bad film in any right. Like, it's still in my top 5, I think, maybe
Yeah,
6, but it's still up there out of the 10 Star Wars films. It's still, it's
in the
still up
top
there.
half, yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, it's beautifully shot. It has some real moments of absolute just beautiful direction and acting. And the actors are so good in this trilogy. They're just so good. And in the prequel trilogy, the actors were just not well directed, and because like Hayden Christensen isn't a bad actor. He really is not, and neither is Natalie Portman. And it just to see them struggle through scenes like they did in the prequel trilogy just shows that the direction wasn't where it needed to be.
Yeah.
And another critique of that. So, but that said, seeing things like Rogue One and now Solo, and I won't spoil Solo at all, but speaking in generalities, seeing the direction these take, and giving Star Wars the room it needs to grow and kind of come into its own. And it's because for a while there, I thought they would follow the mold of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, that they would start doing that sort of thing. And I feel like they're not actually going to do that. I think they're going to let Star Wars be its own thing. And Disney giving it the room to grow, and if the fans would give it the room to grow, I think that it's going to start putting out some stellar stuff. And I just feel like, because like people are like, why are they doing a Boba Fett film? Why did they do a Solo film? Why are they focusing on characters that already exist? Because you have to wrap people into this universe in a way that's meaningful and really sell the universe. And that's what they're doing. They're fleshing out the universe more so that people get engaged and involved, so that they can try things with new characters and new settings and new adventures and get away with it.
Yeah,
And that, I think, is the challenge that they face, is people don't get that vision for the future. And that vision for the future is maybe 4 or 5 years off, but after a Boba Fett film and a Yoda film and an Obi-Wan film, where does that leave us? There's not a whole lot of characters they can explore, so they're going to start making new stories.
I mean,
that's what we want.
I'm still waiting for my Salacious Crumb, epic trilogy.
Oh man, Salacious Crumb. Oh, such a great character.
No, but and one of the unfortunate reality of big budget movies is that they are big budget, and so you, as Disney, as much as I want to see a new series of Star Wars movies that takes place in the Star Wars universe, and it's completely tangential to everything we've already seen. No Skywalkers, and it's just another corner of the galaxy and another story. As much as I want to see all of that, Disney has a business decision to make, and that is right. They are committing $200 million or $300 million to each of these films. They have to kind of guarantee an audience, because they've got to be able to make money on it. If they don't make money on these movies, they can't make them. They can't make more of them. So there's a balance they have to strike of, how familiar it is to get the audience in versus how much new stuff they can bring to it. And because if they don't draw the audience, then they can't make the movie.
Because let's look at it this way: if they were like Mara Jade, a Star Wars story, how many outside of core fandom would go see that? People who have read the expanded universe stuff.
Yeah,
their goal is to pull as many eyes as they can, and something like a character that nobody's ever heard of, like Mara Jade, or I mean Thrawn, not so much because Thrawn's been wrapped into Rebels, but characters like that, like or Kyle Katarn.
Even Thrawn, though, and Thrawn is the one that's always thrown around by Star Wars fans. Like, why didn't we do the Admiral Thrawn stuff? And it's like, The reason they didn't do the Admiral Thrawn stuff is nobody knows who the fuck Admiral Thrawn is.
But they do now. He was in Rebels.
He was in Rebels, but how many people are actually watching Rebels?
And that's
outside
fair.
of Star Wars fans.
That's true. And children.
And I just realized I'm like dropping F-bombs left and right, so I probably need to clean that up a little bit. Sorry, guys. I realize the chat probably doesn't care, but like for podcasts and podcast audience, I do try to keep it a little cleaner. And I'm sorry, I've been a little unguarded today.
They'll forgive you. We're talking Star Wars, man. It's important.
It's all emotions. It's all bringing it all up. But that's the thing.
We're passionate.
Even Admiral Thrawn and Mara Jade and stuff outside of the fandom, there's not this understanding of who those characters are, and the Star Wars fandom can only take you so far. You need, like The Last Jedi. Yes, they want those hardcore Star Wars fans to show up to the movie.
They want to make new fans too.
They want to make new fans, and also they need to be able to just say, like, hey, remember Luke Skywalker? Here he is again. Here's Luke Skywalker as an old man. Like they need to be able to draw in those casual fans who haven't read all the novels, who haven't watched Rebels, who don't know that Clone Wars is a thing. They need to be able to draw those people in addition to the people who know every single character and who are waiting for the, IG-88 movie trilogy.
Right.
But
to be fair, sometimes a gamble like that can pay off. I mean, if you look at the Harry Potter franchise, Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them was a bit of a gamble because it was a brand new character that was mentioned in passing in the books in the movie, Newt Scamander. So it was kind of like, oh, like who's this guy? Like most normal folks are like, who have seen the Harry Potter movies and love the movies and haven't read the books like religiously like I have.
Right.
Are like, I don't know about that. I don't know about that. Fans were like, yes. The difference, I think, is that the timing was better because the Fantastic Beasts movie comes out at a time that those of us who grew up with Harry Potter and loved Harry Potter, and I hated Harry Potter when I was younger, but I grew to love it much more recently. But that said, for the generation that grew up with Harry Potter, when Fantastic Beasts came out, they were all old enough to make the decision to go see it themselves, right? And they have all the money and everything to make those calls and share Harry Potter with their own kids and their own families. So I think timing plays a big role in that too, because nobody knew who Newt Scamander was or any of that stuff. But because they took that gamble, it paid off really well. And I think it could work out with Star Wars too. It's just, I think from a business standpoint, it makes a lot of sense for Disney to play it safe with existing characters and try to build the fan base more before they move on to taking chances like that.
Well, and the other thing is, and this gets back to the fan base that we're talking about, is they have to please this increasingly toxic fan base.
So toxic. It's so bad.
And so here's the problem they have is everyone wants this, whatever their pet thing is, right? Everyone wants the Sarlacc movie. But the problem is, or not everyone, but some, there's some fan that's like, I'm waiting for my Ewok movie. And, and that's, and great, good for them. I mean, I get, you like this corner of Star Wars and you're a fanatic about it. And I understand that and I'm sympathetic, but Disney has to basically be able to make movies that please everyone because the budgets are so incredibly high for these things.
Yeah, the stakes are huge.
These stakes are amazingly large, and you're not talking about, you're not talking about these, like, okay, we can take a chance on a $40 million Star Wars movie. If you made a $40 million Star Wars movie, odds are everyone would be like, what was that? That was terrible. Just because it wouldn't have the quality and it wouldn't be
the flair. Yeah.
The flair, it wouldn't have the special effects, it wouldn't have the, I mean, and while some true diehard fans might like it, and I probably would like it, if you're like really into the lore, you might be like, a really talky, like Pulp Fiction in Star Wars kind of movie might be great, but like most people are probably not looking for that in Star Wars. So unfortunately, Disney has to do the safe things before they do the risky things, mostly because the fans are so ridiculously fickle.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, they're so toxic and they're so out there. And this, you know,
True.
getting back to liking something that no one else likes. You know, it's like being in that fandom and liking, you know, I can't tell you how many discussions of Star Wars I see online that I just immediately have to click out of because it just turns into a hate session on The Last Jedi. And there will be one guy that's like, you know, hey, I liked The Last Jedi. And then like 50 people will just jump on that guy and be like,
how dare you like what we don't like?
They trashed my childhood, and Luke is not a wimp, and, you know, like all this stuff. And I'm like, guys, you know, really, it's not, you know, if you don't like it, that's fine. You don't have to like it, but you really don't, like, you don't have the ownership over it that you think you do.
Right. Well, when people get the whole you trashed my childhood stage, they've gotten to a point where it's all it's their way or the highway, and they stop, in my view, they stop being part of the fandom, but they're there to just pollute it. And that's part of my problem is once you like go make a fandom around the movies you like make a separate group that can love on that and leave the other stuff alone. Like if it's not problematic, if it's not hurting anybody, leave it alone. Like let people enjoy what they want to enjoy. Like you can have critiques for it, and I'm not saying don't be critical, don't, you know, have points of view against it, and you don't even have to like it to critique it. Like you can dislike it, but tearing other people down and being negative towards other people simply because they like something you don't is not acceptable. It's not an acceptable thing, and it's part of part of my own streams is has become that whole like my number one rule is don't be a dick. And when somebody comes in and tries to tear me down for playing a game or that I like, or tears someone else down for what they like, they get a ticket to the door, because we don't put up with that. We don't put up with overt negativity because it is toxic to a community. And unfortunately, there's no way to corral the entire Star Wars fandom, because there's millions and millions and possibly hundreds of millions of fans of Star Wars. So it is incredibly difficult to have any kind of controls over the way that the fans behave and the things that they say. And you know, I take a hard line on it because it keeps a community healthy and strong in my experience. And I feel like there might be a solution there if Disney was willing to step up and say, hey, those of you who are trashing The Last Jedi for the fact that, you know, A, B, and C, you know, valid reasons why it's stupid that they're being negative, and saying, you know, hey, get out, we don't want you in the fandom anymore, I think would be the way to do it. And I know that's turning off part of your audience, but it's also pruning the bad to, you know, prune the negative, bring in the good, you know, let it thrive and flourish. And that's the only way to do that.
Absolutely. And so one of the final things that that I wanted to kind of bring up is, what is the solution to this, the, you know, Phantom Menace fan group on Reddit? Mm-hmm. Is that the solution? Is it that everybody has to fracture off into their own little, you know, we liked The Last Jedi, you know, forum somewhere that, you know.
I think for safety's sake, yes, that's a great solution, because then you have a space where you can feel free to talk about it and maybe have reasonable discourse about criticism that's moderated. See, you can even have the Star Wars subreddit could be a place if it were moderated properly. Yeah. And that's the problem, is when it comes down to moderation, people seem to have this really weird concept of, especially Americans, where, hey, freedom of speech. Well, you're on a private forum, they can moderate it the way that they want to. And taking a hard line on overt negativity, either removing or even timing out, or you can't really time out on Reddit, but banning people who are overly negative and attacking others is the really only way to handle that. And it's the only way to prune that. Like if somebody comes in and says, hey, I didn't like The Last Jedi for this reason, this reason, this reason, and somebody says, well, I really liked it for this reason and this reason, and then you have like a civil discussion that's not, ad hominems, not name calling, none of that. That's fine. Don't remove that. But if somebody says, "Oh, well, you like Last Jedi? Well, you suck. You're an idiot. And you're dumb. You don't know anything about Star Wars. They ruined my childhood, and you're a terrible human." Get rid of them. They're gone. They don't get the right to talk.
Okay, so
and
everyone on stream, you heard that. So clip that and let's trim it down nice, because we know that we know now Tim's true feelings. If you liked The Last Jedi, you're an idiot and you're terrible and you suck. And we can just cut that all down out of context. Sorry, Tim. Go ahead. I'm so messing with you.
Well, Danny says people got to understand that things change and it's not going to stay the same. So if you don't like the new stuff for being too different from the old stuff, I don't think really that's a valid argument unless it was supposed to be like the older stuff. And ultimately, my point of view is that you're welcome to have a civil discussion, but this being the internet and that being Reddit, there's going to be people who are douchebags. And I think what it boils down to is the way that your community is managed. Because if you want to hate on Last Jedi, that's fine. Make a Hate the Last Jedi subreddit where everybody can just rag on it and post their crappy memes and all that stuff. And take it upon yourself as the leader of a forum to lay down rules that you enforce very specifically to keep things in check. And that's my point. It keeps it from getting toxic. That's all.
Yeah, exactly. And actually, this kind of dovetails into another thing I wanted to talk about today, which is guiding and curating your online audience. And so one of the things I'm curious about is how do you do that? And I'm going to toss this back over to you, Tim, a little bit, because one thing I'm impressed with is your audience on your streams. The chat is super engaged. The mods are really good. If people are being jerks, they get dealt with very quickly. And then the people who aren't being jerks are having a great time, as far as I can tell. I think everyone seems to be having a good time. Well, let's put it this way. That's the impression that they put out, which is that's a great impression to have. And, I will say that your stream is one of the very few streams that I felt really welcome in. And I felt like the chat really, people in the chat, like Elle, for instance, really interact with other people. And, they kind of go out of their way to interact with people and interact with other people in the chat. And one of the things that I see in other streams is it's such kind of a crap show of chat just being awful, and people just being complete dicks, and either being dicks to the streamer, or being dicks to each other, or both. And it's terrible because it's like, I don't want to be here. I don't want to see this, and maybe it's just the fact that I'm not a 16-year-old on the internet and I'm, 42 and I don't want to be, I want to engage with people in a healthy, not toxic, hopefully fun way. I want to make jokes, and I don't, even if those jokes are inappropriate and other people are making inappropriate jokes, that doesn't mean you're being a jerk. It just means you're making a joke, and that's fine.
It's acceptable within context.
Yeah, exactly. And I think for a lot of other streams, either that line is very blurred, and maybe it's maybe the audience just skews very young. But you seem to do a good job, you and your mods. I keep saying you, but I really mean you and the chat mods. Do a really good job of curating that community. And
interestingly, my community is really good at curating itself too. Like, if somebody is being a dick in my chat, even if there are no mods around, my community will shut them down.
Yeah.
So that it's kind of a group effort.
Oh, right.
And I think kind of to answer. Yeah, go ahead.
I just want to preface. I just wanted to say that as the streamer, though, as the kind of head of the community, and I know that might not be a comfortable place for you to be or you to think about being, but in a way, I mean, the community wouldn't exist without you being the streamer. So, how do you set the tone?
So a lot of it has to do with experience, and I mean, I've been streaming for almost 3 years now, I want to say. First on Twitch and then on Mixer, and kind of it came down to a lot of soul searching as to what I wanted. And the two things that I wanted was a community, and a community of people that were like-minded and similar in age, at least adults, you know. So the real challenge was really defining what I wanted from that. And setting community first is something that I feel like a lot of streamers don't do. A lot of streamers are focused on just getting as many numbers, as many asses in the seat as possible, and filling up their chat with viewers, regardless of toxicity, regardless of how they behave. And while that my stance is much slower, and I've made a lot of choices that make my growth much slower than others, and I'm okay with that because I've learned what works and what doesn't, and it's a constant check and balance. But I've come to that conclusion that for me, variety streaming plus a very tightly curated community are extremely difficult things to grow with. And I wanted to have a meaningful talk with my community. I wanted to be able to ask people how their day is and have a real chat with them, or have a discussion about something like video games or something in the industry, or what's going on within the context, within the confines of the rules, of course. So like we avoid politics and religion as much as we can, as long as it's and if we do talk about religion, it's within the context of the game and not like global politics or anything like that, because again, those two things, religion and politics, have divided close families, much less a community of people who know each other and are getting to know each other. So you don't want to have that divisiveness if you can avoid it. So I just made a very conscious decision to say, this is what I want from my community. This is how it's going to be. I handpicked all my mods because they were what I consider to be beacons of the community, and people who understood what I was trying to do and helped me to accomplish those aims in their own way. And so bringing them on, they enforce those rules, every rule to the max that they can. They make sure they know me. I consider them friends. So, we talk, they know me, they know what I'm interested in and what I'm interested in seeing and not seeing. So whenever somebody says something stupid, they have the same sense that I do, that person's probably just trying to be a troll. Let's get rid of, or let's tell them to knock it out, or just get rid of them entirely before it gets out of hand. And it's having kind of a really well, it's making your mod team a team. And that's something that also a lot of streamers don't do. Like my mods all hang out. We have a mod chat on our Discord where they talk to each other and they discuss things, and they work through, questions they have for each other. And, how would you handle this? How would you do this? And we keep track of everybody that we've ever banned, everybody that, and people that we time out. We mentioned that as well. And we just put a really strong emphasis on working as a team. They often get into voice chat together, and they actually talk while I stream with each other to, say, oh, I got this ban, I got this timeout, I got this guy, that sort of thing. And it's a really fascinating thing because as a team, they're much more likely to deliver meaningful guidance without being rude themselves.
Yeah.
And I mean, they'll be rude when it's needed. Like if someone comes in and says I suck, I know I suck. They don't need to tell me. And so, if the first thing you're saying to somebody is something rude when you first see them, you're going to get torn apart. And my favorite thing is seeing my mods and my community leap on rude people like a bunch of starving jackals and just rip them to shreds before they get banned. And it's the funniest thing. It always cracks me up. It's like just some of the people in my community are so witty and so funny, and it always makes me laugh. And it's a great thing. That said, it's about focusing on what you want from your content. And for me, it's community. And even if it means that it takes me another 2 years to get to the point where I can do it full time, I'm willing to put in the effort because the community is worth it. The people that are there that I've met, the friends I have made, are worth every second of putting it in there that I put into it. So it's it's knowing what you want and chasing it, because a lot of the bigger streamers, what they want is numbers. They want money. They want to make it full time, whether that means, you know, that as soon as the game that they're playing dies off, they lose all their viewership or not. That's their, you know, they go with that. They roll with that. Whatever, you know, floats their boat. They want the fame.
Well, then
quote unquote.
then they just switch to the next big thing, and they just
Correct.
go, you know, oh, PUBG's not the thing now, it's Fortnite. Okay, we go to Fortnite. And then
Right.
Fortnite, you know, or, you know, Overwatch was a thing, and then now it's PUBG. And then from PUBG,
Yes.
they go to, you know, like that's
But
just...
if you go to those streams, what kind of community do they have? And that's the ultimate thing. Is
yeah.
What I'm trying to build is a community for people who understand what it is to be an adult. And I think one of the big things, and Elle kind of touches on it, is I want it to be a safe place for people to be who they are. And you know, you get all this flack for safe spaces and snowflakes and blah blah blah, but I want it to be a safe space where people who, whether they be trans, whether they be gay, whether they be black, white, Puerto Rican, who cares, you know, who they are, they can be themselves and treat each other and be treated like a human, you know, regardless of what's going on outside of the stream.
Yeah.
And I know that's a little mushy and maybe a little like over the top for some people, but personally, I don't care, because I've seen the garbage that people spew at gay people. I've seen the garbage that people spew at bi people, at trans people. And for me, I don't want to ever have any part of that in my community, ever. And it's one of those deals that if you can't treat people, you know, like people, then maybe you shouldn't be involving yourself in any talking. Don't talk to people. Just go find a bunker, hole up there with your, you know, your survivalist rations, and wait for the end to come, because that's where you need to be. Because just treat people like humans. That's all that I want from a community, and that's I think the biggest thing for me.
Absolutely. And you know what really impresses me also about the mods is the other night went out with a friend of mine, had a couple of drinks, came home, got on your stream, and promptly made a highly inappropriate joke. And one and like Hambrams was like, whoa. And I immediately was like, hey, I had a couple of drinks with my friend. I'm probably way less filtered than I normally am. And instead of everyone coming down on me, and even Hambrams, who is Hambrams a mod? I'm not sure if Hambrams is a mod.
No, he was for a while, but he does a lot of that kind of duty still.
But yeah, and even Hambrams was like, "Oh, dude, I get where you're at. You just sometimes it's a little across the line," and I was like, "Totally get it." And you know, like that's the one thing that I really am impressed with. It's one thing to ban people that make that are being inappropriate and toxic, but it's another thing to like have that tolerance of hey, people still make mistakes, people still cross the line, and you know, not necessarily intentionally, you know, crossing a line, or maybe crossing a line because they're trying to joke and they flew a little too close to the sun. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, and I think what it kind of boils down to is that there is such a thing as a teachable person, a teachable moment, or even a point of, you know, people can make mistakes.
Yeah.
But especially when it comes to like kids who you can tell are so painfully children when they come in and they're like, you know, you're gay. And it's like, all right, buddy, here's your teachable moment before we ban from the chat. Because you obviously came in here, the first thing you said is you tried to make a derogatory out of something that is in my rules. So let's first of all, and then we go into it, we talk about, and I will take a moment and I will say, there's nothing wrong with that. If you have a problem with that, get out and let's redirect, and then leave it at that. If they make the choice to stay, sometimes my mods won't ban them. Sometimes they'll time them out. Sometimes they'll just delete the post. It depends on how busy we are. There are some days where we're like super slammed in chat, and it's just easier to ban people. Because honestly, when you've got, you know, 50, 60 people talking in chat at once, and I'm talking like engaging in chat, not, you know, and then you have like 5 or 6 people being trolls, you don't want to sit there and try to educate, you know, people when chat's moving so fast that, you know, you don't see it. So you just get rid of it, time them out, ban them, whatever, and move on. Because, you know, those people have no interest in engaging in a community usually from the get-go.
Yeah.
That said, you know, we try to do the education thing when we have the time, energy, and patience to do it. But if you are a kid and you are, pardon my French, a little shit, then you need to be, you need to just go Google it. Why is this bad? It's not hard. You have a smartphone, you have an Xbox with a web browser, you probably have a tablet. Go on it, type into Google, why is saying you are gay is bad? It is not, you know, and it'll be like, Google will say, bro, it's not, you're a moron, go outside and play. You know, something like that. And that's kind of what it comes down to for me is utilizing teachable moments where it makes sense and just cleaning up the riffraff where it makes sense as well.
Yeah, and I would totally agree with that. And that's one thing. You touched on something earlier that I also wanted to mention is there's an awful lot of, and this happens on Reddit, I think, more than in chat, because chat's a little bit more instantaneous. But when you ban someone, kick someone, whatever, or time them out, you know, there's the my personal favorite argument is the, you know, freedom of speech, man. I can say whatever I want. And the funny thing is, people don't understand what actually means, because freedom of speech essentially says that the government in the U.S. cannot make a law that restricts your speech. Yes. That's all. That's all that means. That does not mean that you have freedom from consequence from your speech. That does not mean that you can say whatever you want to whoever you want without them, you know, retaliating. That does not mean that you can go into a chat and be a complete jerk and just people have to expect it, you know, have to accept it. That's not the way freedom of speech works. And people have this, you know, unfortunately it's called freedom of speech, which gives this kind of false impression of what it of what it actually is. And you know, it's just funny to me how people think they can say whatever they want, whatever comes to their mind, however offensive they want to be, without consequence. And you know, and I will say, and even when I made that highly inappropriate joke on your, you know, in your chat, I was like immediately apologetic, because you know, I was like, hey, okay, that might have been over the line. Even in, you know, even internally, my internal monologue was going like, this is close, you know, this is getting there. And I even had a debate with myself about whether I should make the joke or not. And then because I had a couple of beers, you know, the make the joke side won out, and I posted it. But the moment I realized that somebody was like, whoa, hey, like, not whoa, okay, that's over the line, but funny, like, more like, whoa, that's over the line and probably not cool, I was like, whoa, okay, I didn't mean to go over the line. Like, I was very apologetic immediately, because, you know, like, if you're an adult, you have that, you know, hopefully, you have that, like, perspective of, you know, where, you know, like, oh, okay, I'm not... my speech is not without consequence, and I'm not trying to offend somebody. I'm trying to make them laugh. And if I've offended them, you know what? I'm going to back off a little bit and apologize and say, hey, I didn't mean to offend you. I was really just trying to make a joke, and I went over the line, and I'm sorry.
Exactly. And not every joke has to land. Like, I make a ton of jokes, and I would say a good 80% are not funny. So ultimately, it's just one of those things where, like, when you're an adult, you don't double down and, well, I mean, people, I take it back, because there are adults that do double down. You shouldn't double down and be like, oh, well, it was a joke, get over it. You know, just, I'm sorry, I made a mistake, and move on. And it's as simple as that. And that's where it gets really interesting, because kids tend to double down every time. They're like, oh, can't you handle a joke? It's like, oh, I can handle a joke. I can also handle trolls like you. So goodbye, you know? And there's that line of, you know, wisdom and understanding what the difference between, you know, being respectful and being disrespectful is. And if you make a mistake, the respectful thing to do is say, hey, I screwed up, I'm sorry, let's move on, and that's that.
Yeah.
The disrespectful thing is to say, hey man, you're the one with the problem here, not me. And that's where the line is crossed in the wrong way. And it's very, very frustrating to see that sometimes. But it's just a matter of understanding that people make mistakes, giving them the room to grow. And, you know, the obvious trolls who come in and the first thing that they say is, you suck, you're garbage, you're terrible, you're the worst streamer I've ever seen, you just get rid of them.
Yeah.
But when somebody comes in and they genuinely are like, hi, how are you? You know, and they engage, that's where that whole dialogue of, you get a chance, you've earned a chance because you seem to be a decent human, comes in. And
Right.
and it's very interesting. It's been an interesting thing to learn who is a troll and who's not. It's very pattern based because trolls are almost always the same. So
Well,
it's pretty fascinating.
One of the interesting things is, and I want to touch on what Elle said in the chat here in a moment, but one of the interesting things is it almost comes down to empathy with other people. You know, like you were talking about being treated like a human, and it's really about empathy. You know, having empathy for your audience, not only as a streamer, but as the person in chat. The rest of chat is your audience, and the streamer is also your audience, right? As a chat participant, you know, what I post to chat goes out to everybody else who sees it, and they're my audience. So having some empathy with your audience and saying, like, you know, hey, I don't want to be treated like this. So if I don't want to be offended, and I don't want people to say mean things about me. So, you know, if I say something and it comes across as mean to someone else, having that empathy of someone says, hey, that was kind of mean, and you go, oh, shoot, I wasn't trying to be mean, I'm really sorry. That's like this empathetic response. You know, and like a lot, you know, trolls or, you know, younger audience members probably don't have that, either don't have or don't want to have that capacity. You know, and something, and that kind of touches on what Elle is saying. You know, she's like, she mods for larger streamers, and she's like, she says she has faith in the redemption of people. She doesn't want to ban them. She'll time them out for a long period of time, weeks, you know, and maybe reports them. But, like, you know, she's not wrong. Trolls are often trolls because of pain endured in real life or lack of life experience. You know, and that's, you know, and again, that's kind of an empathetic response of saying, you know, what's making this person be a jerk in chat? You know, they're being a jerk because they feel like they need to be for some reason, to make themselves feel better or to get out some kind of frustration that they have with their real life that they can't get out any other way, or they feel like they can't get it out any other way or a constructive way, and so they're doing it in your chat. And, you know, I mean, and this, I think, and Elle is a great perspective here. I think this is like the crux of why your community is so good, is the mods have this mentality. You know, the mods have that idea that, like, you know, and even you, when you talk to the trolls, when you're talking directly to a troll, you see someone in chat and you go, you know, all right, you're a troll. We don't tolerate that here. I've watched you do it a few times where you're just like, you know, like that person will be timed out and you will be literally giving them like a 30-second long, hey, that's not cool. And if you want to hang out here, you got to do it this. You got to kind of follow the rules. And one of the rules is don't do X, Y, and Z. You know, and how many streamers do that? Like, how many streamers actually lay out the expectation on their audience?
I don't know. I could not tell you. I don't know.
I mean, but that's I guess what I'm saying is I think you're in the minority. But the thing about that is, if you ever talk to a teacher, or you know, or if you ever take like a parenting, you know, class, or like, you know, stuff they tell you about parenting children, is one of the things you have to do is lay out, or even managing people at work, laying out the expectation is super important. And guiding someone back and saying, hey, you didn't, you know, you are out of line, and the expectation is that you're going to do this and you're not doing it, is like something that's very like basic, people management. And, that's something that you take the time to do, and I don't think a lot of streamers actually do.
I feel like with my platform, I would be remiss not to use it for some good, considering how bad my gameplay is. So,
and I want to touch on that just briefly, and I know we're running kind of long here. So
I'm out of time myself.
Yeah,
so.
we're gonna wrap it up. I just wanted to touch on one thing though. Your bad gameplay makes everyone in the chat feel better about their own gameplay, because I guarantee you none of us are nearly as good as we pretend to be.
Well, I would very much like to say one thing in my defense. I play a lot of games, a huge variety of games, so it's hard to get good at any games, okay? That's my defense. I play a ton of games, okay?
So Tim is a jack of all trades and master of none. You heard it here first,
so
folks.
Very true. Oh, man.
And on that bombshell, I think we are going to wrap it up for the week. We have reached our quota of social interaction. So Tim, where can people find you on the interwebs?
You can find me on Mixer at mixer.com/insertcointheater. You can find me on Twitter at insertcointim. Insertcointheater was just a little too long for Twitter, so insertcointim. And then Discord is discord.gg/ICT. How about yourself, Eric? Where can they find you?
Oh, they can find me on Twitter at ZaxxusEMK, on twitch.tv/ZaxxusEMK, and on youtube.com I am /EricKleinCreate. The show is available on Stitcher, Google Play, iTunes, and wherever fine podcasts are sold. Our website is mandatorysocial.com. You can always find the latest episode there. There's always a link to the YouTube and to the audio podcast. The theme song is Protofunk by Kevin Macleod. He's at incompetech.com. Background music is by Benjamin Burns. He's at abstractionmusic.com. That's going to do it for this week. Thanks, everyone, for listening. Thanks, everyone, for being in the chat. You've all been amazing and exceptional human beings. We love you. Tim, have yourself a lovely weekend and a lovely week.
See you, Eric. Later, chat.
Dude, that's staying in. That is so staying in.
My freaking dog. He was sitting at the door and he just stared at me. And I made the mistake of looking at him. Boof.